Mr. President, 56 years ago, it took President Eisenhower a year to convince Congress and the country to make an unprecedented investment in America's highway system. After all, building 47,000 miles of interstate highways across the nation would require an unparalleled effort and an unprecedented investment. The project required enough concrete to build 6 sidewalks to the moon. And it cost $50 billion, or the equivalent of almost $500 billion today. The project was hugely successful. It created jobs that connected farms and factories, tiny towns and towering cities, and allowed manufacturers and merchants to ship goods across the country for the first time in our nation's history. Looking back on this effort to pass the first highway bill, President Eisenhower considered it a crowning accomplishment of his presidency. Quote, more than any single action by the government since the end of the war, this one would change the face of America, he wrote in his memoirs. Its impact, he went on to say, on the American economy, the jobs it would produce in manufacturing and construction, the rural areas it would open up, was beyond calculation, end of quote. So 56 years after his initial work, Congress was once again considering transportation legislation and an investment in this country's crumbling roads, bridges, and train tracks. But we have the benefit of history on our side. We know from 56 years of experience that investing in America's highways and railways will create and sustain jobs. And we have no doubt that building a world-class transportation system will help us rebuild our world-class economy. That's why one of the most conservative members of the Senate, senior senator from Oklahoma, Senator Inhofe, and one of the most liberal members of the Senate, the junior senator from California, Senator Boxer, have joined hands to advance this bipartisan transportation bill before this body. The bill is comprised of 4 measures reported out of the Environment and Public Works Committee, the Banking Committee, the Commerce Committee, and the Finance Committees, all with bipartisan support. And both sides have agreed to a package of 37 amendments in addition to this that's now part of the measure before the Senate. So this is the legislation, as I've indicated, that's here in the Senate now. If the filibuster ended and we passed the bill before us, it would be a huge step forward. Pass what we have now to vote on, and we could call it a good day for America, a real good day. But in today's political climate, bipartisan support isn't enough to keep good legislation alive. In today's political climate, 85 votes to begin debate on a measure isn't enough to guarantee the measure will become law. The transportation legislation under consideration is truly bipartisan. It will create or sustain 3 million badly needed construction jobs. Yet, Republican leaders have wasted almost a month on the Senate's time obstructing this valuable measure for political reasons, obviously. Unfortunately, Democrats cannot keep construction crews working to repair 70,000 collapsing bridges across the country without Republican cooperation. Without Republican cooperation, we cannot expand the nation's mass transit system to accommodate tens of thousands of new riders every year. And without Republican cooperation, we cannot create and save 3 million jobs repairing crumbling pavement and building safer sidewalks. And it will take bipartisan effort to advance this bipartisan legislation. Frank Turner, former federal highway administrator, said work on this country's transportation system, quote, will never be finished because America will never be finished. Although the work is never finished, it's up to Congress to sustain the effort, to move it forward. And unless Congress acts this month, work on highways, bridges, and train tracks will come to a grinding halt. Unless Congress acts, the American economy will pay the price for partisan bickering. So, Mr. President, what we have before the body now is the measures reported out of the 4 committees I talked about, plus 37 bipartisan amendments. We should pass that. We should invoke cloture on it and just pass that and wait for the House to pass whatever they do and go to conference. That would be a tremendous step forward for us. So I'm hopeful my Republican colleagues will join Democrats to put American jobs ahead of these procedural games that we're having so much trouble with, and help us advance this vital transportation legislation.